to the American Idiots Podcast, the show where we take the hottest topics currently dividing our country and we debate them with our diverse group of hosts. So sit back and strap in, as for the next 2 hours we leave no story undebated and no politician will be spared. It's the American Idiots Podcast live on Podcast Network 49, and it begins right now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the American Idiot Show. I am Money Mike, going to be joined pretty quick here by the Manic Hispanic. Of course, want to take care of our housekeeping stuff. If you're watching us on Facebook, go ahead and give the page a like and share the video. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, as well as hit the notification bell. That way you're notified whenever we upload, which is usually Mondays at 7:30. And of course, if you're listening on our audio-only version, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast and leave us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes, if you would, please. But with that being said, Manny, before we even get into the topics, we got to continue this conversation. I was convinced until I literally sat down and started watching the video of Will Smith last night. I was convinced. I thought, he made a joke about the man's wife. The man was angry. He went up there, slapped the shit out of him. Will's from Philadelphia. You can believe that Will would do some shit like that. But after watching the video, man,
I think it's a big work, man.
That was a bad work at that. Like, that working slap was terrible.
There was a couple of things that I was looking at. And, when you first see it, that slap kind of comes out of nowhere almost. Right. But that's one of the reasons that it seemed like it was fake to me as well, was because he goes up there. Chris never moves, turns to him.
That step forward.
Right. And even at the time that you see it, you don't realize that he really leans into it or any of that, even taking a step forward. But it's like when he gets there, that slack comes through, and then he just turns around and walks off. Right. I guarantee you, if somebody is really, really pissed about something you just said, they're not going to stop at a slap and turn around and walk off.
Right.
You're going to have security over there grabbing them as soon as contact is made.
Right, exactly.
So that was the first thing that caught me. And then once you see him, as he's yelling, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. Chris Rock almost seemed like he didn't know what to do.
Right.
He led with he just slapped the shit out of me. And then he tried to make the next joke as if he knew, okay, I got to get this next joke out, which didn't land at all. Nobody laughed. Nobody cheered. Nothing. And then it was like Chris Rock didn't know what to do. That was the only thing that led me to believe maybe that wasn't so much of a work.
More than the slap, he definitely sold it afterwards. Like you said, he looked discombobulated by everything that happened. And then, of course, Will, that may have been Will yelling. That may not have even been part of the initial plan. Will may have done that like, oh, shit, he's in trouble. Let me fucking say something.
Right.
But, my goodness, everybody and their mama, there's memes. And I mean, to be fair, how much have you heard about Chris Rock and Will Smith before this? Genius move, honestly.
Right.
Genius move.
Right. Another thing that I had seen was talking about the amount of viewers that have been leaving the basically any award show, not just Golden Globes. All your award shows have been suffering from a lack of audience tuning in. So this may have been something that they were asked to, hey, do y'all think y'all can do something? Crazy enough, yesterday, let me back up a little bit. Saturday, we had our March Mania event at South Central Wrestling.
How was
So,
that?
of course, yeah, that was great, man. Low on numbers, but whenever you're doing something over spring break, you never know what to expect. You never know if people are going to be in town or not. This was the first Saturday that we've had sunshine in like a month and a half.
Right.
So people wanting to get out and do stuff, but you still had people that weren't going too far because of gas price issues.
Right.
So, people that didn't travel that normally would have were still there. So it was kind of good, kind of bad. But yeah, so that popped off Saturday, and then on Sunday, uploading everything to the computer to start putting our rewind show together on SCW Arkansas on YouTube. If y'all want to go check those out, I was putting together our rewind show, and I've already forgot where I was going. Y'all have to forgive me. I'm trying to wake up. I got home from work and I took a nap, man. I took about an hour nap.
Ooh, hey, those are always the best naps. Those after work naps, man. You be sleeping good. You be waking up wondering what year it is.
Well, because of our event Saturday, I mean, we didn't get into bed until 2:30 Sunday morning, so we didn't get up until around 10:30, 11 Sunday, close to afternoon. So it was hard to go back to sleep so close to that.
Right. But absolutely. But definitely they accomplished what they were looking for. And again, if it wasn't a work, obviously don't make the joke. But if it was, which it certainly, there's a lot that makes it look. The fact that, like you alluded to earlier, there's no security, nothing like that. If it wasn't a work, then, something crazy. Somebody lost their job last night for allowing them up on that stage. If it was, then they accomplished their mission.
That's where I was going with that. Now that you mentioned that, while I was uploading all those videos, I actually came across a show on Hulu that is, it's called The Dark Side of the 90s. And the first episode of that was about Jerry Springer.
Yes.
And his first season compared to the other seasons that they put on. I mean, his first season, they were trying to make him like Phil Donahue. Very boring, very bland. When they saw they were about to be canceled, they started trying to figure out, okay, what's a way we can stay on air? And they saw that to that point, the highest rated talk show episode had been when Geraldo Rivera got hit with that chair during that big fight.
Yep.
So they catered their entire show to that moment, and that's why you saw so many fights on Jerry Springer. And to this day, if I'm not mistaken, what they were saying was it was the #1 show to date because of all of the fights.
Absolutely, that used
you
to
take that kind of information and mix it with what we just saw on the Golden Globes. This could have been a tactic to try to get people to start tuning into award shows because you never know what's going to happen.
Very true. Very true. And I mean, it would be a very smart business move for them to do something like this. Because like you said, between the pandemic, people just not caring about award shows anymore. It's one of those things, they've gotten really political, and you don't watch, you listen to this show to, hear your politics. You watch the Golden Globes and stuff to talk about movies and shit.
Right.
Not political statements. So, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff that has definitely drubbed the award show circuit for sure. But, whew.
That's one of the reasons I miss some of our old co-hosts, because I enjoyed arguing. It's not that I disagree with them completely. Sometimes I would argue a point just to be arguing.
Right.
and that's, I don't know if a lot of people realize that about me, but sometimes I'll just take a stance that's not exactly with something that I truly believe, but I'll take that stance because I know that it will provide a good argument.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, and it's definitely one of those things that, even you will usually preface your argument with, "Hey, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but have you thought about it from this perspective?" I mean,
Right.
it's one of those things that hopefully we'll start getting some more people. And hey, if you guys want to be on the show, you guys may have a differing opinion. Feel free to hit us up on the Facebook page. We'll try you out, and we'll try to get you on to get some more voices on here. We used to have like 6 regular people on here, and now we're down to 2.
One
So
of the things I used to do whenever I first started coming on here, because my wife would always make sure that I had food to eat, and I would eat in between the times you would show videos. But I used to show my plate, and we went with salsas, not salsas, but what is this place? Chili's. Oh, we went with Chili's tonight.
that looks good.
So so
Okay.
yeah, got some. I think it's the fajita deal. And instead of actually making fajitas, I just mix the rice in and dump
Mhm.
the beans on top of it and the shredded cheese. And yeah, every time that we go to a video, y'all can guarantee that I'm going to be taking bites and trying to get it swallowed before Mike puts the camera back on us so that y'all don't see me with a mouthful of food.
Oh, that's always fun though. Well, this first topic, I hate to disappoint you. I wasn't able to find a video for it, but when you shared this story about
I haven't even gotten a first bite yet, guys. And now he's already teasing me. He ain't gonna let me bite yet.
when you shared this story about Tucker Carlson, I really thought it was crazy. Then I read the story, and Tucker Carlson is quoted in this story saying, if Supreme Court Justice nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson really represents black women, then why doesn't she think like a street rapper? What?
Right. And that's one of those things where and I've been on this kick for a few months now, that the headlines that they were throwing at us versus the content of the actual story really throws you for a loop. And
Right.
as I recall, I meant to look that story up again to look at all that. But as I recall, when I shared this, after skimming through it, he didn't really say that word for word.
He didn't. And when you take a deeper look, so of course, the first sentence, I'm pissed, and I'm just reading this pissed. And then I start reading the breakdown. And while I still think that what he said was very offensive, what he was alluding to was that Ketanji Brown Harris doesn't and wouldn't be able to bring diversity to the Supreme Court short of just being, an African American, person. What he's saying is that she, has lived a gifted and, blessed life, and she couldn't, like any other Supreme Court person or anybody else in Washington, couldn't identify with the average, person of her ethnicity. And that's what, the actual quote, she's just a carbon copy of everyone in the neighborhood I spent my life in. Um, that's actually interesting to me that I look at that as one of two ways. Do you really like what's next? Are we asking to put Lil Wayne? Nobody fucking is asking to put Lil Wayne on the bench.
Right.
But so, I mean, it's one of those things like, why is Tucker Carlson bringing this up? Is my question. Like, is he just trying to find something? Because, I mean, me and you both agree. Ketanji is a great candidate. Short of those two things, Ketanji Jackson, short of those two things that those two minor details, of one's a major one for me, where she was getting those convictions overturned.
Right, which hadn't really come up yet.
It hasn't, which is a little
And
off.
and the short sentences for pedophiles, which we hadn't even talked about because even I didn't realize all that was going on.
Right, right. And it's crazy that like all of this is going on and they're really avoiding a lot of things. One of the questions they asked her, which really kind of threw me for a loop, and we're going to talk about this in greater detail later because the governor kind of put his foot in his mouth a little bit about a NCAA athlete who won last week. But they asked her, what does she define as a real woman? What does that have to do with? She's not going to make any rulings in these NCAA cases or in this NCAA stuff. She's not going to. Why ask her that question instead of asking her about her actual stuff?
Views on the constitutional issues.
It's a constitution thing. You're asking what's your definition of a woman. That's like asking Trump's nominee, who's Amy Coney Barrett. That's like asking Amy Coney Barrett about her religious beliefs. One has nothing to do with the other. Now, she may have a set of guiding principles, and her interpretation may be a little bit different because of her views, but it's still all about the Constitution when it gets to the Supreme Court, not your personal opinion or your personal views of things. And this nomination process, honestly, I don't know whether there's been a backroom deal to avoid this, but from the Biden administration, or what's going on. But literally, they're just kind of softballing and pussyfooting around with her while she's up there, getting prepped and getting, I forget what the word is, but they're looking into her to become a Supreme Court justice. And this isn't the time to pussyfoot around. This is the time to hit them with the hard questions. I know that politically, again, you look at when I believe it was Clarence Thomas, when Reagan appointed Clarence Thomas, and you got the sexual assault allegations, and there's that famous picture of like 7 white dudes hovering over one black lady who's trying to tell her story. Optics look bad, but still, it is your job, whether optics be damned, to make sure that this person is the best candidate. And right now, again, the only glaring issue I have with her is these overturned decisions.
Right.
Answers to that to have complete faith.
The fact that Tucker brings up the representative point over, that basically brings up her race instead of her record, I think is pretty concerning.
I agree.
If you're really trying to discredit someone, why wouldn't you bring up their record?
I absolutely agree with that. He brings up, his quote is, if you picked a rap star, the actual quote is, if you picked a rap star off the street, that person's view would more likely be closer to the views of the average American than the views of this woman, I would argue. I would bet money on it, he says. Yes. And while that may be true, the same argument I said with Donald Trump, like, hey, he says what's on his mind, but at the same time, I don't want a fucking president who's not going to be like, should I really fucking say this before he says it? You know what I mean? I want somebody to act presidential, I guess is the key word there. I don't want somebody up there fucking acting like a rapper, even if they may identify more with the average American. Could you imagine somebody like that on the bench? That's crazy to me.
If they had the record that backed up that what they were doing was in fact constitutional, regardless of what the decisions were, I would say, yeah, I don't care what they're saying to the public. I don't care how Tupac they are.
Right.
If they are bringing truth the way Tupac did so often, I can overlook how they're saying it.
Right, right, absolutely. It's one of those things that we're getting off into this with Kentaji, and it's almost a little bit disheartening that, and if I'm Kentaji, I'm very upset that I'm not getting a chance to prove myself because really it seems like they're not giving her an opportunity to prove herself, and there's going to be questions. Just like there was questions about the last two Supreme Court nominees, Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh. We still ask questions. Kavanaugh a little bit. I think we have a good idea with Kavanaugh that things may have been blown a little out of proportion. Not to say he didn't do anything or anything like that, and not to say that if he did it, he's not a bastard. But the lack of evidence suggests that he probably didn't do anything. So less with him, but you still hear the questions about Amy Coney Barrett. And that's another thing that we should be using, and Congress especially should be using these hearings to answer as many of those questions as possible. We're paying these people a lot of money to sit in a room for 8 hours, and
even that. I mean, that's what these hearings were designed to do, is to bring up issues of record and anything else that may look to other individuals that this person may not be the best pick for the job, and all they're doing is basically pointing fingers and playground laughing at stuff that don't matter.
Exactly. I would rather know her views on the Keystone Pipeline, even though it has nothing to do with the Constitution, than what defines a real woman. And that's a literal question from a Republican member of the Judiciary Committee. Like, y'all need to do better, for real. And that's very disheartening to me that we have this situation going on with a potential justice for the highest court in our country. I can only hope that moving forward, we're going to see this, kind of simmer down, and people are going to get back to, how it should be. But the evidence is suggesting we're moving towards these kind of bullshit questions, where we're headed. When we're doing these nomination processes, and really it's just doing a disservice to the American people.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you there.
Speaking of utter failures in Washington, Brittney Griner is said to be in good condition from the State Department, and we have an update on Griner from Good Morning America.
For weeks, these are the only images we've seen of WNBA superstar Brittney Griner, the 6'9" standout currently being held in Russia, accused of trying to import hash oil, according to Russian state media. Now, after more than a month in detention, the State Department has finally been able to meet with Griner in person.
The consular officer who visited with Brittney Griner was able to verify that she is doing as well as can be expected under these very difficult circumstances.
The State Department says it's pushing for more access to Griner and other Americans detained by Russia. Griner, who plays center for the Phoenix Mercury, is a 7-time All-Star and 2-time Olympic gold medalist. And for several years, she's also played in Russia, a common thing in the offseason by WNBA players who can earn a lot more money overseas. In Russia, big-name players can bring in 4 times the maximum WNBA base salary. Russian officials stopped Griner last month at an airport near Moscow and accused her of having cannabis oil vape cartridges in her luggage.
We don't know whether she actually did bring these, hash vaping items into Russia or not. The Russians are notorious for planting drugs and other things on Americans.
News of Griner's arrest surfaced just days after Russia launched its violent invasion against Ukraine and comes as the U.S. has already been working to free 2 former Marines from Russian custody. Paul Whelan is currently serving a 16-year sentence after being accused of spying, and Trevor Reed, 9 years over an alleged fight with a Russian police officer. Both men have denied those charges.
Russia has a horrendous human rights record, and they're in a position to release a lot of people being held against their will, not just those 3 Americans.
Griner's wife posting earlier this month, "I'm hurting. We're hurting. We await the day to love on you as a family." Experts point out that because this is such a diplomatically sensitive moment, there's some concern that putting too much attention on Griner's case could turn it into political leverage. The charges against Griner in Russia carry a possible punishment of up to a decade in prison. And Russian state media reported just recently that her detention has been extended through the middle of May. We're going to stay on top of this story, Craig.
Yeah, please do. Our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson, for us. Hallie, thank you.
Hey, thanks for.
Okay, so did you get a bite?
I did.
Ooh, nice.
Very good.
It was a successful video then.
Yes.
So here's my first thought on this. Number one, how can anyone say that you're in good condition when you're in a fucking foreign prison somewhere in a country that is actively a enemy of the United States? Let's start there. What the fuck, State Department? Not to mention, I didn't even know about the other 2 individuals. So we'll start with the good condition comments.
Well, I mean, she's breathing.
I guess that's the bar we set. If you're breathing and you get fed something that's at least edible. It doesn't have to be.
Her watch hadn't showed her going in and being cut up into small pieces.
Right, exactly. So over the past week, Manny, I've been listening to some of the conspiracy theories surrounding this Griner thing. While I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, I think there may be some real smoke to this fire, or some real fire to this smoke. I don't know that when you look at it logically, and we can break this down kind of like we did the Will Smith and Chris Rock thing. When you look at this logically, Griner knows the rules of this country.
Correct.
She just happens to have it in her bag, and it just happens to be found by security. I don't know that this wasn't a plan, as they alluded to in the story there.
Now then, here's what I'm looking at. I mean, you've got a city full of people as Chicago that know the laws of the land, and still it's got the highest homicide rate by gun in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, somebody tell me. But the fact that they said that the other 2 gentlemen vigorously deny the charges and never said anything about Griner denying the charges makes me think, maybe she didn't deny it because she did do it.
Maybe she did do it. Of course, 12 years is fucking asinine. People talk about the war on drugs in this country. Holy shit. Damn. But no, seriously, it just, and the reason why I say that, and you bring up the Chicago thing, and I can see your point there, but my thing is this: as much time as she spent over there, don't you feel like she would be a little bit more careful? Is what I'm not even saying that she wouldn't have had. I'm just saying, don't you think she would have been a little bit more careful? Don't you think, like, if this wouldn't have probably been her first time with this hash oil, and she just caught this time, she just happens to get caught, you know, right after they invade the Ukraine, and they know that the U.S. is fucking doing all this shit. Like, again,
okay, let me bounce back against you. Okay, how many people are caught on Interstate 30, Interstate 40 trafficking cocaine?
Okay.
At some point, they get 2, 3 trips, 4 trips in, and they relax because they think, oh, we've got it licked. Not a big deal.
True.
So because Russia was invading Ukraine and knew there was going to be all kinds of stuff and knows this American is coming through, let's check her bag a little extra careful this time.
True. Good point. Valid point. So you're saying basically that the whole Russia-Ukraine situation may have played a role, but you don't think it played a role in them detaining her, like planting evidence. You think
Correct.
you're saying it played a role in them taking a little bit harder look at her back.
Correct. Because even Shaggy said, if you're caught red-handed, you deny it.
True.
All right. It wasn't me. And we're not seeing reports that she is saying it wasn't me.
Are you disturbed as I am, or as disturbed as I am, I should say, at the fact that we're not? So obviously, there's always, stuff done in the background, and not everything's reported. Not everything, is for the average citizen's consumption. But I'm a little concerned that we aren't hearing much about the Biden administration and the federal government stepping in this situation. I mean,
Yeah, that's well, and now we're learning it's not just her; it's two other ones that have done things or are being accused of doing things. So, yeah, the fact that the Biden administration isn't stepping in to try to save or bring home any of them,
right. I mean, because I look at this right now as Brittney Griner is a political prisoner. I don't know if you look at it in the same way, but I look at it as she's a political prisoner.
I would definitely look at it more that way. Like I said, if she was denying the charges, that's the only hang up that I've got on it, because when you have two people that are adamantly denying the charges, you can see where, I bet things were planted. But you have a third person that isn't even denying it, then you got to kind of wonder, were they, actually guilty of what they're being accused of?
I'll say this, though, even if she is guilty, the reason why, and I've thought about this before I even started questioning whether the evidence was actually there, I started questioning whether she was technically a political prisoner or not before that, when I thought, okay, she got caught with some shit. Because would Russia, I want to know what this looks like for the average everyday time that they catch somebody with.
Right. 9 times out of 10, slap on the wrist. Hey, don't do it again. But because of what's going on, yeah, let's show them what we can do. And I totally agree with that.
That's why I wonder if technically, I mean, I feel as if she is a political prisoner in that aspect, because they're, there's obviously conversations going on, but I'm really disturbed by the fact that we're not hearing anything from the Biden administration. We're not hearing anything from, Russia, obviously, about the whole situation. Whereas, if this was 10, 15 years ago with the Obama or the Bush administration, they'd have been making a big fuss about it.
They would have been making a big fuss. You would have been seeing all kind of celebrities talking out against it. You would have had several different people in key positions going over there to discuss bringing them home.
Where's Hollywood in this situation?
Right.
Like,
busy slapping each other.
Yeah, I was about to say they're busy planning a work shoot at a fucking award ceremony. And again, we're talking about the slap, but guess what? We're not talking about Brittney Griner being mentioned on the Oscars and how she needs to be freed. It's a little disheartening for Griner, I'm sure, that she isn't getting. I would feel like I'm not getting any support from my country if I'm Brittney in this situation.
Right.
Okay.
And like you pointed out, who knows what's going on behind closed doors? The people that have gone over there to talk to her to see that she is in good condition. She's probably had the chance to talk to them, so maybe she doesn't feel that she's just been abandoned there. I would certainly hope that our government, even though I don't always have the biggest faith in our government, I would certainly hope that they're not just leaving her out there without communication of some sort.
Yeah, hopefully, even if it's just getting her some lawyers and stuff over there, like something, they need to be assisting her. Okay, so we'll move right along here into Russia, and we have a story here from CNBC on this.
Good evening. New signs tonight that Russia's invasion is failing, and the Ukrainians could be turning the tables on Vladimir Putin. Russian forces have lost full control of Kherson, a key port city in southern Ukraine. That's according to a senior Pentagon official. This could be a huge strategic blow for Putin. Controlling Kherson is crucial for Russia's advance from the south. It was the first major city that Russian troops were able to capture, but they've been facing unrest and defiant protests in the streets after they took over. And here's another sign that the invasion is struggling. A U.S. defense official says Russia has started moving reinforcements to Ukraine from the country of Georgia. Moscow is now signaling that it may give up on conquering the whole country. The Russian military claims it's shifting its focus to liberating eastern Ukraine. That's where Moscow-backed rebels have been fighting to secede for nearly a decade. Of course, we don't know if the Kremlin is lying. As Russia wages war in Ukraine, President Biden is on the other side of the border in Poland, a NATO ally. Today, he met with American troops who are deployed there right now to reinforce NATO's eastern flank.
We're in a new phase. Your generation, we're at an inflection point. About every 4 or 5 generations that comes along and changes, fundamental change takes place. The world ain't going to be the same. The question is, who's going to prevail? Are democracies going to prevail and the values we share, or autocracy is going to prevail? And that's really what's at stake.
Poland has become the epicenter of the Ukrainian refugee crisis. Tomorrow, President Biden is set to meet with refugees. The White House says he'll also give a major address.
So, Manny, we're looking at this, and we're what now? We're over a month into
a month and a half. Yeah,
month and a half into this Ukrainian conflict. And last week, you said that you think that the longer this goes on, the more it's going to turn in the Ukrainians' favor.
Yep.
It's looking that way. I disagreed with you and thought that it would they would just keep ratcheting up the pressure. But the Ukrainians are actually making strides in taking areas back. I'm still not 100% convinced that crazy bastard ain't going to just be like, you know what, let's just fucking end it.
If I can't have it, no one can.
Exactly. I'm still not convinced he's not going to do that. And let's be honest, even though Russia would claim victory in that situation, nobody wins.
Right.
It's interesting to see that the Ukrainians are still fighting. Everything's kind of dying down a little bit too. When this first happened, a month and a half ago, everybody, it was front page. Everything you saw was about the Russia and the Ukraine thing. The U.S. is starting to kind of move on about our lives now. Will that play a role, you think, in
I think it
forward?
I think it may, because as long as our eyes are not focused over there, we can send troops to help a lot easier than if everybody's eyes are over there, because whose troops they are won't always be immediately known.
Right. Absolutely. And, I've often thought about that. Technically you can't immediately identify somebody as an American troop or what have you. And, to say that that's never happened, I probably couldn't say that that's never happened.
Right.
Interesting thought. What do you think about the reports that Russia blew up oil reserves, though, over there in Ukraine? I think this is another move where Putin's like, well, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to punish the U.S.
Right.
I think all of this isn't about Ukraine for him. I think it's about the U.S. and showing the U.S. what the Russia's still capable of. Unfortunately, right now, they're kind of failing, but he's...
Oh, we see all they're capable of.
Right. I mean, they're capable of being like, hey, I want to fucking do this, They're capable of losing convoys. They're capable of going into battle without enough fuel to get their convoy going. They're capable of losing to farmers. Short of the nuclear option that Russia has, I'm no longer afraid of getting into a conflict with Russia because I
Right.
honestly, they're like, this dude's as fucking wacky as we think he is. Honestly. Um, so as we go on again, we continue to, this image of the great Russia, and Yushu, it was, hey, you don't want to fuck with Russia and China. Now is
Yeah.
that kind of is that
Yeah.
kind
The
of
Great
playing out?
Russian Bear isn't so big.
Yeah, it's crazy because for so long we didn't have these conflicts, we didn't have all of these things, and we didn't have to worry about Russia because we kind of kept them in their place over there in a box.
Yeah.
And now that they're out, we were all thinking that they made these great strides since the 90s when basically they were, in shambles.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at Russia, and it doesn't look like they've made as many strides as we thought. At least not
Yeah.
militarily.
Right.
I mean,
like I pointed out, you've got a group of farmers from old country that are keeping them at bay.
exactly. You look at this though, and going back to the oil reserve, I think that this is literally when they target things like this. I think this is a direct message to the U.S. that we're going to fuck everything up. Y'all want to punish us, we're going to punish you. This is their way of sanctioning the U.S., I think, is what I'm trying to say.
And while I can see it,
up, et cetera, et cetera.
right. While I can see that, I also see that it is a last ditch effort type maneuvers to, okay, well, like I said before, if we can't have it, we're not going to let anybody have it. So, yeah, let's burn as much of the oil that they would be able to survive on. Because while yes, it does punish U.S., it also punishes the Ukraine, because if Russia pulls out, in order for the Ukraine to survive, they have to have some sort of export.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right. That's one of their biggest exports, along with, their crops and what have you. But their biggest export is obviously the oil and the energy aspect of it. Okay. U.S. governors are refusing to acknowledge the victory by a trans athlete, Leah Thomas, specifically Governor Ron DeSantis. But we have a story here from the Today Show on Ms. Thomas.
Transgender swimmer Leah Thomas breaking barriers and records. But in a new article, Sports Illustrated calls the college senior the most controversial athlete in America.
Her story, to her, is about swimming. It's about swimming as her authentic self.
Thomas telling the magazine, "I just want to show trans kids and younger trans athletes that they're not alone. They don't have to choose between who they are and the sport they love." Her presence on UPenn's team has become a lightning rod in a bitter debate over transgender athletes in women's sports. Even her teammates are split, with some publicly coming out in support of her while others say she has an unfair advantage. The controversy has drawn in some of the biggest names in the sport.
I believe that we all should feel comfortable with who we are in our own skin. But I think sport should all be played at an even playing field.
Thomas is eligible to compete under NCAA rules, which require transgender athletes to complete at least 1 year of testosterone suppression treatments. The article describes her years-long journey, a struggle that began in high school, saying she felt disconnected from her body. That feeling continued in college and led to depression as she swam for the men's team. But Thomas eventually came out to her family, friends, and her teammates. In May of 2019, she began hormone replacement therapy.
I had a lot of uncertainty about my future in swimming and whether or not I'd be able to keep swimming at all.
Thomas says she immediately felt better, even though her race times slowed. UPenn welcomed her on the women's team.
Being in a swimsuit 20 hours a week has sort of helped me with accepting my body.
It has also made her a target for nasty backlash and even threats.
Has this last year been hard on her?
Yeah, extremely. There was, I think, a tabloid newspaper that was kind of following her around.
Those who question the fairness of her competing are afraid of backlash as well. One parent anonymously telling the magazine, "Leah is a human to be treated with respect and dignity, but it's not transphobic to say I disagree with where she is swimming." Thomas's response to that argument? The very simple answer is that I'm not a man, she tells the magazine. I'm a woman, so I belong on the women's team. As for her swimming future, Thomas has her eye on the Olympics.
I think her overriding message here is that she wants to swim as who she is, and she wants to encourage other people to be who they are.
In February, USA Swimming put forward new guidelines for trans female athletes that would have made Thomas ineligible, but the NCAA ultimately decided the new rules would not affect this season.
So what's next for her after college? What are her goals?
Well, the first thing is the NCAA championships. That comes up in a couple of weeks. Then she has her eye on the Olympics, and USA Swimming says if she qualifies under their new guidelines, they would gladly welcome her on the team.
All right. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Stephanie.
So, Manny, I feel like this is an issue with a simple solution. And I feel like the NCAA has put in a simple solution. I feel like if you have gone through, so the main argument is that males naturally have more a advantage in sports over females. Here's my thinking process. If we can test through other sports, I've seen it especially in MMA, the amount of testosterone in one system, why can we not set a limit for these transgender athletes, and if they hit that limit, then they can compete as a female or a male, and you can, obviously, you accept, people can widely accept the results of the competition. Why are we not just putting common sense here? Because again, I do believe that, hey, that's her choice as a person to decide whether, she felt comfortable or whatever. That's on her. That's up to her. Why would we then say that even though she's taking these steps to get rid of those advantages, she still can't compete in a female sport?
They already do that, Mike. That is their deal. Like they said, you have to have been using the hormone suppression for a year, and they do test to make sure testosterone levels aren't above a certain amount.
Right.
When you're competing. The problem that I have, and many of these other people have, are that in the developmental stage of the body, growing up as a kid into your teens and young adulthood, as the body develops, a male muscle tissue and bone density is higher than a female's.
Right.
So through the development of a typical person, your body develops a certain way in which the male chromosomes, or the testosterone, gives the advantage to a man.
Right.
So whenever you look at, for this, we'll take the swimmers. When you look at the swimmers and this person, Thompson, swam on the men's team, and we didn't see a whole bunch of record setting there.
Right.
Goes to the women's team and is all of a sudden a champion.
Right.
That right there tells you there's an issue, because we don't see the same things from women who are transitioning into male. It's not like all of a sudden they're hitting harder than women hit or swimming faster than women swim.
True.
But when you have a male that is transitioning to a female and competing, they are starting to break these records that that biological women have set, have worked hard for, to be recognized.
Right.
I think more importantly, what needs to happen in the Olympics and in all these other divisions, NCAA, even pro sports, they need to just create an entire different category. You have men's sports, you have women's sports, you have transgender sports.
Okay. Now I do have a question. You make a valid point about, in the early stages of life. But I counter that by saying, do you believe that we're setting transgender athletes up to not be able to compete in their given sport? Because I think it was 6 to 8, maybe even a year ago, months, we were talking about, having an age limit of 18 for them to even begin these things, because, when they're younger, they may not have the mental and maturity level to make these decisions.
Right.
Are we setting these athletes up for failure, though? Like Leah, for example, was already in college and was swimming on the men's team, then, decided to make that transition. Are we setting them up for failure, though, and not really giving them an option to completely get rid of that advantage?
Well, it's hard to degrade the body to a point where it averages somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have Special Olympics for people who can't compete on the regular Olympic teams.
Right.
So what would be wrong with setting a transgender Olympics or a transgender
category?
Yes. There's division. I was thinking the word division. Doing a transgender division in all these sports. So I'm not saying remove them from competition, period. Create a division where they can compete with able individuals.
Right.
So I mean, would Leah Thompson still have won if there would have been a second transgender?
Right.
So those are the kind of things that I start looking at.
Absolutely. And I think you raise a valid thing. I don't know if there's necessarily going to be a solution to this. I think
I just gave you a solution. Create a division for them.
I don't know.
If we can create a division for paralegals or quadriplegics, not paralegals, paraplegics or quadriplegics, why can't we create a division for transgenders?
Very true.
Not saying you have to stop your sport. You just have to compete with like individuals.
I'm not saying that there isn't an easy solution. There's a solution. I don't think we're going to find an readily everybody accepts it solution. I think that your solution does definitely have merit. It makes sense.
Right.
The other thing, though, that I do have a problem with in this, so I understand your point, but for governors like Ron DeSantis to come and, in my opinion, maybe you'll disagree with me, but degrade Thomas and Thomas's victory just because she is a trans female, it rubs me the wrong way, because she worked hard still. No matter what, at the end of the day, she still worked her ass off. She still, if I fucking went in a pool, I'd look like goddamn Shamu the whale trying to fucking flop around to swim. Like, obviously, she worked hard to make herself acquire that set of skills. And I feel like it's very disrespectful and degrading for somebody like Ron DeSantis to try to take that away from her and say, well, I'm not acknowledging her victory. I feel like that's not right.
Yes, and I do disagree with what you're saying, because you have a bunch of women that were swimming that day that worked their asses off.
True.
And the bottom line was they were beaten by a genetic thing, not by just working your ass off.
True. You make a good point. I definitely I see your point, and your point does have merit. I feel like to specifically target her was wrong, but I like I said, your point has merit as well.
But you have to look at it as a whole. Anybody that puts themselves in that position is going to be targeted that way. When African Americans started playing baseball and on the same fields as white athletes, or even Italian, I want to say people from Puerto Rico was more accepted in baseball before African Americans were.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, once you start looking at that kind of stuff, once they started allowing people that others saw as different compete, you're putting yourself in that position to be ridiculed.
Very true. Very true.
Now, granted, a black man, I see no difference in the genetic makeup of a black man versus a white man or a Spaniard or anything like that. People are people. So the whole race thing is not what I'm trying to get into. I know the race thing is there. I am not racist at all. But for that time period, once they started getting that difference,
you're saying they opened themselves up to ridicule, which I mean they did, as did, and I mean to be fair, Thomas seems to be taking it on the chin and saying, hey, whatever.
And I'll even put that to women in the business world. For a long time, women were not seen as someone that could be in a business setting.
True.
Much less see them as leading in a business setting. And nowadays, it's nothing to see women CEOs.
Another thing I want to ask you, do you think this should even be on politicians like Ron DeSantis's radar? To be fair, we talk about how, certain things shouldn't even be on the radar. They should be, handled amongst themselves by the governing body. Masks, for example. We said that shouldn't even be on the governor's, agenda. That should be handled at the school platform. Shouldn't this be handled and accepted if the NCAA is saying it's okay, which is the governing body of the college event that she competed in?
Well, ultimately, it is handled at that level, but I mean, there's nothing that says that we can't speak out as to our individual opinions.
True.
So, and that's all DeSantis has done is given his opinion.
Right. Okay. And you're right. His opinion won't change the fact that obviously the results.
Right. I mean, she still got the trophy.
Right. Exactly.
The reports are still in the books that is your winner.
Exactly.
So nothing DeSantis has said has overturned anything.
Right.
He's just saying he doesn't agree with allowing a biological male to compete with biological women.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead and move on. This one is baffling to me because it ties into the last topic we're going to go into right after this. But congressional Democrats are proposing a stimulus payment direct to American citizens for gas. And we have a story here from Yahoo Finance on this.
Give me that stimmy. Well, more checks could be on the way, at least is a proposal to address the rising price. I had to address the rising price of gas, which is apparently making the rounds on Capitol Hill. 3 Democrats suggesting a payout of as much as $300 per month for as long as the national price at the pump remains above $4 a gallon. Akiko, I know you out in California, you're feeling the pain of that rising pump price, but you think this is the good solution here?
Yeah, I have to tell you, Brian, I've only been out here for a few weeks, and I caught myself the other day driving by the gas station, looking at $5.20 gas, saying, "Oh, that's pretty cheap." that is not a good sign. I mean, that's kind of where we are right now. And you know,
you posted one that was even higher than that, right?
I did post one that's higher, but I was smart enough to not go there.
Outside of Beverly.
Yeah, exactly. You've seen it, Brian, out here. It's the one outside Beverly Center that everybody goes to because it's always the highest gas price. That one had premium unleaded at $7 and something cents. I stopped looking after that $7 mark. But, you know, the reality is that regardless of what you think about the policy around gas prices, it's just not good politics. And so what you're seeing is the White House trying to, you know, sort of come out forward and push policy here in California. You've got Governor Gavin Newsom yesterday coming out and talking about $400 direct payments to car owners to be able to pay for gas. And if you think about a state like California, the rough estimate here, at least from the governor's office, California driver spends about $300 on gas tax in 1 year. And so obviously you've got the governor here saying, look, we're going to try to provide some relief at a time when gas prices are so high. You know, whether in fact that softens the blow, you know, we'll have to see. But this is not just a local policy. We're seeing politicians across the country really scramble to try and address this because there are midterms coming up and it's just not a good look.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, the one challenge here is that one reason, it's not all the reason, but one reason why gas prices are higher is because of a lot of demand, not just here domestically, but globally. A lot of people are traveling. A lot of flights are hitting the air again. So a lot of gas and oil is needed. Now, if you give this stimulus to people and they want to go out and then buy more gasoline for it, maybe that further exacerbates prices. So it's a little bit unclear if this would actually have the ultimate effect of doing what it wants to do, which is alleviate gas prices. If, yeah, you can give out the stimulus checks, but prices will only rise even further. But I don't want to kind of rub salt on the wound, Akiko, but I did fill up my tank over the weekend. I was in New Hampshire, $4.10 a gallon. I bet people in California are salivating over that. But let's shift gears over to our
I
chart.
filled up my tank the other day. $70 is what it came out to. A full tank. Granted, it is an SUV, but $70 is painful. And you know how much driving happens out here in California. Not just here, though. I mean, there are rural areas that we've talked about before that don't have options outside of driving as well. So, I mean, you know, that's something that obviously I think a lot of people can relate to. Like,
you drive an SUV? Akiko Fujita drives an SUV.
It is not my SUV. I feel like I'm getting called out for not driving an EV after always advocating for people to drive EVs.
Okay, I'm done. We get the point.
That's a good point he was making, Mike.
By the way,
how are you going to talk about being freaking?
I would also like to point out that I'm the only guy with rising gas prices that decided to go out and buy an SUV. I went out and bought a 2023 Sportage last week. What a dumbass I am. But no, is stimulus payments just going to become the fix-all for everything now?
Under the Biden administration.
I understand the rising gas prices, which again could be fixed by just even temporarily opening the Keystone Pipeline. Just throwing that out there. Even temporarily.
Which Biden signed papers to shut down, and that is one of the reasons that I do claim he has contributed to the prices. Whenever people throw that argument out there that the president doesn't decide gas prices. No, but things the president does makes prices change.
Right, exactly. Compared to what, and I know you know what the next story is, so I'm going to ask you this. So knowing what's to come, why would you add more to the debt?
Right.
Knowing that we already have this.
That's a good thing. The other thing is they're double speak because I believe it was last month. It may have been the month before that, but we were talking about how they were going to start taxing your car drivers through the pumps to help pay for roads and stuff like that. Instead of applying taxes across the board that hit people that don't drive, apply it to fuel costs to hit people that do drive.
Right.
And now they're looking at stimulus to help pay
People
for
that
fuel.
drive. Right.
So, I mean, well, why say we're looking at taxing you so that we can get road work done? And now it's, hey, well, the government's going to pay since prices are so high.
And I mean, so Manny, my thing with the first sets of stimuluses when COVID was going on, it was something that I was like, man, I don't need it, but I can understand people need it. You know, people are losing their jobs. Now we're back to work. I mean, I'm going to say it just like they've been saying on one of my favorite podcasts to watch, the Pat McAfee show. We defeated COVID. It's over. People are back to work.
Right.
Like, why are we still going to pay for people's shit? It makes literally, so the stimulus is back in COVID. I'm like, man, I can understand it has a point. I'm not going to send the check back, whatever. And I mean, again, I'm not going to send the check back in this situation either. I'm going to fucking put it in my gas tank. But.
Right. And use my other money that I've been making all along to buy the new big screen TV.
Right. Exactly. But
I got streaming services I need to pay for. I'm falling behind on my Survivor.
Exactly. But like this one literally serves no purpose but, well, we know we fucked up, so here's some money and you'll pay for it later, but here you go. It's like a credit card.
Right. Here's my big picture on this whole thing. This is how you can tell the buddy system in business and politics. Because if they weren't looking out for their friends to make sure they get paid, they would have already slapped some kind of sanctions on these companies so that they couldn't charge more. I mean, we have laws in this country that are supposed to help to make sure that people aren't charged more, gouged when shit goes bad, and we still have to buy our necessities. So why can't they look at this the same way? Is one of my questions. I've been an advocate for a long time, mentioning that the rent for places should have some kind of cap limit on it. You should not be able to charge $800 to $1,000 for the crappy apartment that used to run $400, and you put no money into it other than you bought it.
Exactly. I completely agree.
So while I agree with capitalism, I still think the government needs to make sure that people don't overcharge for basic necessities.
Absolutely. Raven here says I should go check out the latest videos by Financial Turmoil Explained YouTube channel, and I'll have my answer. It's too much to write out. Here's my thing. Another thing that is baffling to me that I just thought about while you were talking about that. Biden is supposed to be the Green New Deal. Biden is supposed to be Build Back Better. Biden is supposed to be pushing electric vehicles. They're talking about $300 a month tax or stimulus payments to individuals that
to continue to buy fuel to drive up emissions.
With you, the car. So we haven't filled up the Sportage yet, but it's like 0.4 gallons more. So roughly, we spent $40 to fill up the car last time I filled it up. So we're expecting somewhere around 50, and that's going to last us about a week, about 300 miles. You're saying that you're going to give me $300 a month so basically what they're doing is they're trying to cover these people that have the bigger SUVs, the bigger trucks, things like that. Wouldn't the smarter thing, if you really wanted to force people into buying electric vehicles and to cap them at like, oh, I don't know, 150, let's cut it in half. Wouldn't it be smarter to cap these payments and say, okay, we're going to help you to a certain extent, not we're going to pay your gas prices for this gas guzzler.
Right.
These are things that you talked about earlier about talking out of both sides of your mouth. This is literally talking out of both sides of your mouth. I want you to go buy an electric vehicle, but here's $300 to put.
But because gas is so high, we're going to make sure you can afford it.
Right, exactly. We want to make sure you're well taken care of.
And at the same time, they're making sure that their buddies in big oil are taken care of as well.
Exactly. That profit
I mean,
margin can't go down.
Right. These stimulus payments are, in the end, going to corporations.
Right, exactly. It's like a credit card too. You know, hey, I'm going to give you this money now, but guess what? You're going to be paying it later. And I mean, really, you don't even get the option to sign up or opt out. You just get to pay the damn taxes. And speaking of taxes, that brings us into the next point of why this is asinine for me. Biden is planning on raising taxes to a minimum of 20% on Americans making more than $100 million to try to offset the $3 trillion deficit created by the earlier already paid out stimulus tax payments. And we have a story here from CNBC.
You know, without getting into politics or bashing Biden or, you know, what's being attempted here, let's ask ourselves a question about policy. And simply this: if you take the 400 people this is really going to affect, they're some of the most extraordinary individuals that have ever created businesses in America. Elon Musk and Amazon Outcome and everything else. There's thousands and thousands of jobs have been created, billions in taxes have been paid. But here's the fundamental issue. If you want to take Elon Musk money from him while he's alive, because remember, we're getting it from when he's dead. The estate tax is going to clean him out when he's dead. But why take his money now when he's creating all these jobs and all this innovation? Maybe you like him, maybe you don't like him, but the facts are this. He took the excess capital from creating a brand new industry in electric cars and went into space in a way that the government never could. He beat them at their own game. We need people like that. This is un-American, this idea. It's fundamentally against 60% of the economy, where the companies I fund, the men and women who create family businesses, are vehemently opposed to this, regardless of what side of the aisle they're on.
Hey, Kevin, I'm with you on this, but then you said we'll take it to death. The truth is we won't. So if you're happy to support an estate tax, a meaningful estate tax, we can have this conversation. Also, would you think about those who effectively take loans against their stock? At some point, you could decide those loans represent the equivalent of a sale. Perhaps at that point, there should be some kind of a tax taking place. I mean, there should be some wiggle room.
Those
Carried
loans
interest, for
are
example.
not a sale. No. Let's go back to the loans, okay? They are fully at risk. If Elon Musk wants to borrow against his stock and it collapses for whatever reason, and there's many times in the stock market and in history where great companies hit a road bump and the stock gets cut in half. AMC, if you borrowed money against that, you would have a margin call and you'd be wiped out. He's taking huge risks. But that is not good policy. This idea is un-American.
You do realize that there are a lot of people who have made an enormous amount of money who effectively then take loans out against their stock in perpetuity until death, so that actually, and then by, of course, give so much money away, and I'm all for giving money away, as you know, but that it never gets taxed by the system, so that you and I effectively subsidize them.
I'm good with it, Andrew. I love entrepreneurship. I'm good with the jobs created by Elon Musk and the tax he's paid. I mean, he's the poster boy for this nightmarish policy. My point is, this is not what created America. This is not why I came as an immigrant to America. I wanted a big market, access to capital, and to create a business. I was very fortunate, and I've paid a lot of money in taxes, and I'm okay with it. But this is attacking them for their success. It's un-American. That's what it is. And I predict this, not that I want to get into politics, Biden is going to get decimated in the midterms. Even his own party, the entrepreneurs in his own party, and I've talked to 30 plus of my CEOs, think this idea is insane, really bad, and un-American. So let's call it what it is.
How do you want to do it, Anthony? You were nodding that maybe.
Well, listen, Kevin's doing a great job, so I don't want to interrupt him, but I would tax the interest on those loans. Kevin knows that when you take out a margin loan, you get an interest rate deduction on that loan. I think that that's unfair. So if someone's taking out a $100 million loan on $1 billion worth of stock, I don't think they need the tax deduction there. That's one way to get savings back. There should be, like, there's an alternative minimum tax. There should be an alternative minimum estate tax. I think Kevin's point is you're going to tax them at the end. And Andrew's saying, well, no, because they figure out a way to squirm him out of that. But that's how you can get it. And I think many of those billionaires that are already giving and they have a giving pledge set up, I think would probably be okay with that as well.
So, Manny, again, he's right. He said it in the best way I could say it. It's un-American. We're asking the people making over $100 million a year to basically finance people wanting to get these stimulus payments. It's not right.
Right. Right. And the thing you have to look at is, if there was a flat rate across the board for taxation, the low income people will still be paying less than the people with more income. 15% of $10 is a lot less than 15% of $1,000.
Exactly.
So those people that are making the larger amounts of money will be paying more, even if it was a flat rate across the board. But now you're amping that up, saying, oh, you make more, so we're going to charge even more than we would charge anybody else. It does leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth.
Like the gentleman said, this is taxing people for being successful, and it's not right. It's not what America's about. Joe Biden can come out here and paint this pretty picture of America and say, hey, you can be anything you want to be, but don't get too successful or else we're going to want our cut. That's
right.
Right.
Right. If anything, they need to be looking at big business to fund some of this stuff. Why aren't the oil companies being charged more?
Exactly.
You're making sure that they're getting their cut.
Exactly.
Talking about giving stimuluses and stuff like that in order to pay back to oil companies. So why can't they put some of that bill?
And the argument, that Democrats always say for these things, death penalty, for example, it's not a deterrent. It's not a deterrent. It's not a deterrent. Here's my argument against this taxing the 1%, this boogeyman of the Democratic Party, the 1%. They find ways around it now. They're going to find ways around it in the future. You're not going to get the results you want. You may get, a little bit more, but you're not going to get the results you want. And at the end of the day, increasing these, we're at a point where we have to increase taxes. We have a $3 trillion windfall here that we're just screwed on.
Because our government has continued to just hand out money regardless of who you are.
Exactly.
Like you have said, like I have said, we didn't need the stimulus checks whenever they rolled out the first time, but we were giving them anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was money that has gone against the debt of the United States for no reason.
And, I looked at this while I was sitting here listening to the gentleman talk about loans. If you thought about these stimulus payments as a loan, there is no person that would offer the loan that, basically.
Right.
It's insane. It's asinine. And to ask the top earners in this country, the successful business owners in this country, to finance these terrible, terrible economic policies, these terrible financial decisions of the U.S. government it's unacceptable in my opinion.
Right. And you said they'll find a way around it. I don't know if everybody has seen the commercial. I think it's TurboTax commercial where the lady is talking to the gentleman at a campfire who's talking about his businesses. And she said that they'll get him everything that he needs. And if, since the meeting that they are having right there at the campfire is considered a business meeting, saving the receipt for the beef jerky that he's eating would count as a deduction. Right. So, when you have deductions like that, well, for that matter, all I have to bring up is my business one time at every meal that I eat at, and I can use the receipt for every meal that I've had for the entire year as a business deduction.
Exactly.
That's how these companies, that's how the Trumps of the world get those kind of deductions so that they don't pay a lot in taxes.
I mean, we've all heard it, even in even just working your average everyday job. Somebody will say, hey, let's talk a little bit about the workplace so that, I can write this off. Okay.
Right. And it's not just business owners that are entitled to this stuff. You as a checker at Walmart can benefit from these kind of tax deductions. The only problem is you see that, I've got to do this kind of filing instead of my easy form, and you don't want to mess with it.
I don't want to pay for it. I got to file itemized deductions instead of standard deduction.
Right.
It's more work. Well, guess what? Because they pay these people to do this extra work for them doesn't mean that they're, skirting anything that isn't available to you. You're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. Again, these people will not pay more in taxes. I'm sorry to burst anybody's bubble. Like Democrats like to talk about trickle-down economics don't work. This isn't the solution. This isn't what you replace trickle-down with because it's not going to work. In theory or in practice, in theory, it just sounds fucking cuckoo. Honestly. In theory, you sound like a crazy person when you say this. And you brought up earlier, I completely am in favor of a flat tax. That was one thing that I believe Ted Cruz said that I'm completely in favor of. I think taxes at a certain percent should be flat across the board. Again, if I get a new job or a raise or what have you at work, I shouldn't be like, shit, I'm in the new tax bracket. Fuck.
Right. They really need to get rid of these different brackets.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Absolutely agreed. Okay. Final segment for the night, the American Idiot of the Week, and I'm going to make you smile.
I want to see, is yours still the same from what you told me this morning? So go ahead.
I am my American Idiot of the Week because I bought into this Chris Rock shit, and until I actually sat down, watched the video, and broke it down in slow-mo and everything, I didn't see it. And I've been part of a business that does these things for the past damn near 10 years.
Well, here, Mike. I give it to you for making yourself an American Idiot of the Week. My wife had suggested that maybe I use that as my American Idiot, and I wasn't sold on it from the beginning. So I'm going to stick with the one that I had from before. Do you got any more you want to say about the idiot that you are?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I'll interrupt you. This is more. David Kirkpatrick and Stuart Thompson. Okay. They are my co-American Idiots of the Week because they were the two people that worked on the New York Times story. Okay. Let me go through the setup. Josh Hawley. Is that how you pronounce his name? Senator?
Sure.
Josh Hawley had tweeted that Judge Brown Jackson handed out sentences far below minimum recommended sentences and federal guidelines for possession of child sexual abuse. He made that tweet.
Right.
A QAnon sympathizer replied to that tweet saying, an apologist for child molesters, Democrats are elevating pedophiles and people who can change the laws supporting punishment for pedophiles or surrounding punishment for pedophiles. So basically, the senator said, she's light on sentences. This QAnon sympathizer said, yeah, that's the system. They make sure that their buddies stay in positions like that.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, David Kirkpatrick and Stuart Thompson took that and wrote a story to basically the only takeaway that they had from what was going on was the Republicans and QAnon must be working together.
Okay.
So forget what the senator wrote. Forget what the sympathizer wrote. The only thing they could see is, Oh, they're in agreement, so they must be working together.
They're in cahoots.
So, yes, David Kirkpatrick and Stuart Thompson of the New York Times. Those are my American Idiots of the week because that was their only takeaway.
Wow. Forget the actual context. Forget the big red flag that's right there. All you have to do is read it. And we just want to take the easy way out and go after Republicans and QAnon for working together.
And I did write a note. I didn't get to it shortly after the video, but Biden did not sound very good. That speech he gave to the Polish people over there, the troops and everything. I mean, that he didn't sound healthy.
Nope.
I'm worried about that.
Honestly, out of breath.
Yeah,
he sounded really bad. Honestly.
Yes, he did. So I mean, they would have done better pulling that speech from Independence Day and just playing that.
Hey, that would have fired it up and better than any speech I've ever heard from President Biden. But, hey, it is what it is. Well, Manny, that's pretty much all we got for tonight. Is there anything else you got for us?
No, sir. No, sir. Be looking second Friday of April for our first Rewind show.
Absolutely. SCW Arkansas here on YouTube. For those that are watching on YouTube, go on and check it out. But for the Manic Hispanic, I am Money Mike. Good night, everybody.